I don't know about you, but I have always struggled with a fear of failure. The earliest example I can remember is test taking. I am a horrible, horrible test taker because every time I take a test, I am afraid of getting that test back with a gigantic F written in red marker at the top. And so every time I take a test, I continually second guess myself. "No, well, it could be this answer, it could be this. I don't know. I don't want to get one wrong because I always had this fear of failure when I took tests. But even as an adult, I fear failure. This past year, I've wrestled with this fear of failure and I've unpacked it in counseling. And I think one of the reasons I'm afraid of failure is because I don't want to disappoint people. I don't want to let people down. And I've tried to identify where in the world that comes from. I mean, even in this last year, I've had a whole new, different set of fear because I've completely changed careers. I mean, I was a pastor for 15 years professionally and then switched to a corporate job. So I feel like I have to prove myself for some reason. I don't want to fail at this. And so I'm constantly looking at how I'm doing, how I'm tracking, looking at spreadsheets because I don't want to fail at this new career path. See, that's me. I'm afraid of failure, but I think all of us to some degree have a fear of failure. I mean, some of you listening to this, you're in high school or in college, and you have a fear of failing yourself. For some of you, it might be your fear of failing friends, not being enough for them, not being liked. You have a fear of failing at relationships and being alone, maybe even romantic relationships. And you're thinking, man, what if I don't find anybody? What if I fail at relationships and I don't end up with anybody? Or you could even have a fear of failing academically, a fear of picking the wrong college or picking the wrong degree, picking the wrong career choice. And that's completely normal. Or if you're married, you could have a fear of failing your spouse. If you're a parent, it's normal to have fears of failing your kids. I mean, that's something we don't want to mess up. And this isn't talked about enough. Some of us right now, as adults, are in a season of life where we're actually taking care of our parents and our kids. Some of you, your parents are unable to take care of themselves, and you're having to step up, and you also have your adult children to worry about, plus maybe some grandkids. And you have a fear of failing at taking care of them, at being enough for them, because you're taking care of so many people right now in this season of life. It's it's so normal and it's easy to be afraid of failure because honestly, there's a lot to fail at. However, what I've learned and what some of you know is failure is inevitable, especially as it pertains to our conversation. We're talking about the good life, right? We're talking about chasing the good life. On our way to the good life, we're going to take risks. We're going to step out in faith. We're going to be bold and brave, and we're going to be pushing and striving and grinding. And we will, I guarantee you, more than once fail. It's going to happen. Churchill said it best. He said, "Success is stumbling from failure to failure with no loss of enthusiasm." Those of us who are chasing the good life, we have to get pretty good at failing. Because if we don't, the result is paralyzation. That's exactly what the fear of failure can do. It can be paralyzing, it can make you get stuck. And some of us have been there. Some of us, we may not have been there, but we've definitely seen it. Someone who fails and they become a shell of themselves. They're paralyzed. They feel stuck. They say things like, "What's the point? It's over. I'm done." They stuck. And I'm telling you, when you get stuck, when you get paralyzed because of the fear of failure, it becomes even harder to, to win that battle. So, we're going to talk about the fear of failure, but I also want to plant an idea in your head that you potentially never thought of. Success is actually a much bigger threat to you than failure. Which sounds odd, doesn't it? I mean, fear of failure, everyone nods their head because we've all felt that before, right? But what if I told you that you should actually fear success more? Now, why would you say that, Mike? And the reason I would say that is because of this universal answer. When you deal with failure the right way, the result is humility. I mean, as Christians, especially, failure actually leads us to experience God in a very intimate way. Failure humbles us and leads us to God's grace and forgiveness, mercy, and eventually renewal. Failure can be a very powerful tool to humble us, but also draw us closer to God. Success, however, success often leads to pride. Success leads us to, I'm the man. Look at what I did. I don't need anybody's help. And as Christians, pride actually leads us away from God, not closer to God. And success appears like the good life, but the truth is, it could actually lead us to our ultimate failure. So we're going to get into that as well, but let's start with why we fear failure. Why do we fear failure? And I think the answer is obvious. If I fail at this, then that means I'm a failure. Now, there's a word for this I've learned in counseling: codependency. That means tying how I'm doing to something or someone else and how they are going. I'll say that again. Codependency is tying how I'm doing to something else or someone else and how they are going. I'll give you some examples. How my grades are going is how I'm going. If I fail the test, then I'm a failure and therefore I'm upset. How work is going is how I'm going. If work is chaotic and stressful and we aren't sure where we're going to be in the future, then guess what? My emotions are chaotic and stressful and I'm not sure exactly where I'm going or what I'm doing. I'm a failure. How my family is going is how I'm going. My family is a mess, and therefore, if someone asks me how I am, I'm a mess. Why? Because the kids are sick, and my mom is in the hospital, and we were late this morning. Okay, so well, it sounds like a lot of that is out of your control and not on you. But you take it that way, right? Why? Because you're codependent. How everyone else is doing and going, that is how you end up doing and going. This happens in marriage. Happy wife, happy life, right? If my spouse is happy, I'm happy. If they're upset and outraged, well, then I'm upset and outraged too. That's a codependent relationship. If your happiness and your emotions are built on how they are feeling and how they are going, that means we've developed some codependency here. Now, here's the big question: have you tied your happiness to something or someone else? Even bigger, have you tied your identity to something or someone else? Is your value, is your sense of worth tethered to your performance at how you do something or who you are to someone else? And some of you say, no, Mike, that's not me. I'm who I am and I don't need anyone else. And I don't let other stuff or other people change who I am, but here's what else is true too. You can't have an identity by yourself. It's weird, right? There's a tension there. See, identity is always formed by attaching to something else. I mean, that Latin word for identity literally means identical. Identity means being the same as something else. So, finding your identity is not about deciding who you are, it's deciding who you want to be like, who or what you want to be identical to. So here's the problem we have. How do you have a failure proof identity and not be codependent on other things or people that are out of your control when you do have to tie your identity to something else? You see the problem? You see why there's this tension here of not wanting to have a codependent relationship, but at the same time, to have an identity, you have to be like something else? I'll say it like this: it's like we're made to seek validation from a source, but the more we try and earn it, the more insecure we actually feel. So then, what in the world do we do? Well, I'm glad you asked, because for the answer, we're going to turn to Luke chapter 10, where Jesus sends out the 72 to heal the sick and perform miracles. And they do. But when they come back, listen to what they said. In Luke chapter 10, verse 17, this is what it says: The 72 returned with joy and said, Lord, even the demons submit to us in your name. So Jesus sends out 72 disciples, and they actually end out casting out demons. I mean, it's incredible. It's amazing. And they get back and they are pumped. I mean, they can't believe it. They just cast out demons. I mean, that must have felt like they were just given some kind of superpower or something. And for that moment, they feel like they are winners. But not only do they feel like winners, but they're like, dude, if this is the power of the Lord that we have, we are undefeatable. We are unstoppable. We are going to keep on winning. I mean, how they felt, the modern equivalent for us would have been those days where we're just like, dude, I killed it today. I made that sale. Everyone loved my idea. Dude, I got everything done today. I just made bank. I got a huge check, and I've got a 3-day weekend coming up. I mean, it's that feeling where your kids win at sports and you're like, dude, they're going to win the championship, right? I mean, whenever that feeling, you get the idea, right? Like that's how they felt. They felt like a success is how they felt. And they felt like they were going to keep on winning. And Jesus stops them. And Jesus says this. Catch these words. In verse 18, Jesus says, I saw Satan fall like lightning from heaven. Do you remember what caused Satan to fall? It was pride. If you go back and you read Isaiah 14, it says that Satan wanted to ascend into heaven and build a throne that was actually above God. So here the disciples come back. I mean, they just feel like they're winning. They just did a great thing. They went and did what Jesus empowered them to do. But Jesus stops them and says, hey guys, I know you're having success, but do not become prideful. I saw what it did to Satan. I saw him fall like lightning. And if it can happen to him, it can most definitely happen to you. Jesus is telling them, I think what he would tell us is, hey, stay on your toes when you're winning, because success can be a very, very dangerous place. Success can actually lead to pride, which can actually lead to your failure. But he doesn't stop there. He keeps going. And in verse 19, he says this: I have given you authority to trample on snakes and scorpions and to overcome all the power of the enemy. Nothing will harm you. Now, it's kind of weird, right? Because they were all excited and happy, and they're like, dude, we have all this power. This is awesome. Then he stops them, and he does tell them, he says, guys, you are going to be successful. I am with you, and you have all the tools in the world. And so you are going to crush it. But, okay, you're going to crush it and you're going to be successful. But, and then he says this in verse 20. This is so important. However, do not rejoice that the spirits submit to you, but rejoice that your names are written in heaven. Jesus is saying, don't rejoice in things that can go up and down. That right there, that is the secret to not letting failure paralyze you. Do not anchor your worth, your value, your emotions on things that can go up and down. Because here's the thing, what if you have a bad day and the spirits don't submit to you? What if you have a bad day and your kids say, I hate you, you're not a good dad, you're not a good mom? What if you have a bad day and your parents, who you're taking care of and you're doing everything you can to take care of them, they say, I just wish you loved me enough to take care of me? What if one time things don't line up at work and your work says, man, you are being outperformed by everybody else. What is wrong with you? Why can't you keep up? Jesus is saying, yeah, you're a winner today, but fear success and be careful, because success can very quickly change. And I don't want you to be up and down all the time, dependent on how everything else around you is going. Do not rejoice in this, because this can change. This could be different tomorrow. So I know you're happy, and yes, you are going to be successful, but do not anchor your identity to this, because it's not always going to be like this. Do you understand what Jesus is saying? Do you understand what Jesus is saying, how it applies to you? When you have a codependent relationship on something else that can be happy with you one day and think you're a failure the next, that isn't a healthy place to be. Then Jesus goes on, and this is what he says in this. However, do not rejoice that the spirits submit to you, but rejoice that your names are written in heaven. He says, don't get so caught up in things that go up and down. Don't become codependent on these things, but instead, he gives an alternative. Rejoice that your names are written in heaven. What he's saying is, he's saying, rejoice or anchor yourself to who you are to God. Anchor yourself, find your identity in Christ. The gospel is not you do things and God blesses you. I don't know what your version of faith that you grew up with said, but I think that so many churches, that's the message they send. Do good things and God blesses you. But that's not the gospel. That's religion. Religion says if I try really hard and do good things, then my name will be written in heaven. But the gospel is that salvation is received, not achieved. Gosh, let me say that again because that's too good. The gospel is salvation is received, not achieved. Salvation is not something you can earn. It is a free gift. Jesus says, don't rejoice in what you've done for God. Rejoice in what God has done for you. It's awesome that you cast out demons. It's awesome that you're a good parent. It's awesome that you're killing it at work. It's awesome that you're doing these great things for great people. But here's the thing, that doesn't make your life any more valuable. What makes your life valuable is what God says about your life. Because here's the thing, and you know this, every time you try and earn it, every time you try to be perfect, every time that you try and be and do enough, you will fail in some way or at some time. That's the world. The world will always demand perfection from you, and you will always lose because you are not perfect. But God doesn't demand you to be perfect. He says, come as you are and follow him. And instead of leaning on your own strength and your own understanding, he says, model yourself after Jesus. Follow Jesus. Be like Christ. Be identical to him. And guess what happens? You find an unbeatable, unshakable, unbelievable identity in him as you try to be like him. Our hope, our good life can't be in our accomplishments. It can't be in our potential. It can't be anchored to anything we've done. All those things are far too fragile. And all those things are way too inconsistent. So that causes me to ask a question, and it should cause you to ask a question. What thing that I do have I tied my happiness to? Have I tied too much of my identity, my happiness, to what I do for my kids, for what I do for my spouse, what I accomplish at work, what sport I play, my performance, my status? Like we talked about in this series, the good life requires a trade. The good life requires a trade. So here's the trade I want you to make: living from validation instead of for validation. Let me say that again. The trade that you and I need to make to actually find the good life, actually live the good life, is living from validation instead of for validation. What that means is live as though you're already validated. Live as though your name is already written in heaven. God God loves you. Your identity is safe in Him. He's already died for you, paid your debt, and you are secure in Him. And no one can take that from you. Live from that place of validation instead of living for everyone else's validation. Imagine doing that. Imagine living from validation and having a family. I mean, isn't it true that family always has an opinion, right? Imagine their opinions not affecting your emotional well being. Imagine their opinions not changing your value or what you think of yourself. I mean, one night, guess what? The kids, the family, they could all hate dinner. And guess what? It maybe could not affect you. It couldn't change your opinion about your worth, because it's okay if they think that. It's okay if they have their opinion, because guess what? You're not living for their validation. You're already validated in Him. Imagine going to work living from validation instead of for validation. Not trying to earn everyone's love and respect, not trying to work your way into people's good graces. I think what would happen is you would be able to turn off work in your brain when you got home at night. You would be able to leave work at work and maybe even leave on time, because you wouldn't constantly be working to earn people's approval so that you felt validated. If you were living from validation, I think you would have a healthier life work balance. Imagine living from validation and not for validation. What that would do for your mental health, what it would do for your spiritual health, what it would end up doing for your physical health. I mean, this could really be a game changer for you. This could bring about the good life that you've always wanted. I have a tattoo on my left arm, and it's Jesus and the two criminals on the cross. And it's really odd when you think about it, for people to have cross jewelry or cross tattoos, because really technically it's three people who are literally going through torture, right? So why would anybody wear a torture device around their neck or depict some kind of scene like that? I mean, an awful way to die, depict that through ink on their skin. And the reason is because it's important to me, and it's important to other people, because it is the cross that restores all things. Because of what happened here, I know I'm forgiven for my sins. It's the cross that gives me my new identity, my new label. It's what clears up my past. And it was important to me to get both the criminals on each side of Jesus in this tattoo, because those criminals, they represent me, because I've sinned and I've screwed up and I've hurt people in the past. If you don't know the story, one criminal on the cross, he says, "If you're Jesus, then save yourself and save us. But the other one says, Lord, remember me when you come into your kingdom. And Jesus' response is this: truly, I tell you, today you will be with me in paradise. I guarantee you that if the man on the cross had escaped that cross that day, people wouldn't have forgotten what he had done. He would have been labeled, he would have been shunned, his life would have been dependent on the validation of everyone else, and he would have been constantly fighting for everyone else's approval and forgiveness. And it would have been a huge uphill battle because, I mean, that's what we do, right? When people screw up. But Jesus says to the thief, done. Your name is written in heaven. You will be with me. No baptism, no confession, no apology tour, no probation period. I promise you today, you will be with me in paradise. The thief on the cross next to Jesus died a validated man. And now Jesus promised it. He's in paradise. He's living the good life. Man, I don't know about you, but I have a fear of failure. And it's very, very easy to be codependent on how everybody else feels about me to feel okay with myself. It's okay. It's natural. It's normal to chase everybody else's approval, to try to feel okay by being successful at work or at your business or being a parent or in taking care of somebody. It's really easy for your identity to get wrapped up in so much other stuff. But the truth is, like Jesus said, don't rejoice in those things. Be careful. Fear success, because success can lead so often to pride. And pride could be your ultimate downfall. Instead, find your value, find your identity in Him. Your name has already been written in heaven. You are safe. You are validated. He already died for you. So you're forgiven and your debt is paid, and you are secure in Him because He has adopted you and He calls you son or He calls you daughter. So you don't need anybody else's validation. Yeah, you're going to win. You're going to crush it. You're going to do awesome. That is promised to you because Jesus makes your life better and makes you better at life. However, be careful when you rejoice. And do not find your identity in that stuff. Instead, find your identity, anchor yourself, find your value in Him. Because it is Him and it is only Him. It is what happened on the cross. That is the only way you can know that you are enough.